morning, everyone. The subject that you asked for today is genetic engineering. How does the Torah view that activity? There are two aspects which are conflicting, and that's what we have to do. On the one hand, when God created the world, it says at the very end, or the end of the seventh day, it describes creation asher bara Elokim la'asot, which God created for completion. And the sages interpret that to mean that God created the world, but didn't complete it. He left it for us to complete. La'asot. Asiyah means in Hebrew completion. So he left it for us to complete. God didn't really complete the world. There's a story that goes with that to illustrate that. There was a Roman governor by the name of Turnus Rufus. He was a wicked person, and he had a close relationship with Rabbi Akiva. So one day, he wanted to challenge, he was always challenging him. One day he wanted to challenge Rabbi Akiva, and he asked him, what is better, God's creations or man's creations? So Rabbi Akiva says, I'll give you the answer in 5 minutes. He went out, came back 5 minutes later. In one hand he had a bunch of wheat grain, sheaves, and in the other hand he had a fancy cake. He says, this is the creation of man, God, and this is the creation of man. So he made the point was obviously that in that case, man's creations taste better than God's creations. So Turnus Rufus asked him, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you was, when God created man with a foreskin over his sex part, why do you remove it? So he said, I knew that's what you were driving up to, that's why I gave you this answer. God created man, and he left it for man to complete himself. That's the idea of the Brit Milah. So here we have an illustration that the completion of the world is really left up to man. Another illustration of that is matters of medicine. In medicine, there are people who say, if God made a person sick, why do you interfere and try to cure him? On the other hand, we say, that's Ramban says that, it says, the scripture says, that's in this week's portion. When a person injures another person, he has to pay him 5 compensations in general terms. One is if he damaged him physically, so he's permanently damaged, he has to pay for that damage. He has to pay for the cure if he hurt him. He has to pay for the loss of work. He has to pay him for the pain, and has to pay him for the shame, for the embarrassment. 5 items. One of them is v'rapo yerapeh, that he has to pay the doctor's fee, has to cure him.
What do you mean by shame?
Huh?
What do you mean by shame?
Shame that he's embarrassed. He was embarrassed by having been hit in public. Somebody slaps somebody in front of other people. It's very embarrassing. doesn't hurt very much, but it's very embarrassing. There's to compensate him for that. So, but anyhow, what was of interest to us is the Rapo Yerapeh, that he should cure him. So from this the Chachamim say, Mikan Shniten Reshut L'Rofei L'Rapo. From this we see that the Torah permits a person to be cured. It permits a doctor to cure a person. And the Ramban adds to it, since it's permitted, it becomes an obligation. And it's an obligation to cure a person who might die, especially if it's a potentially fatal injury, he has to pay, it has to be cured. It's a mitzvah to cure.
If the person who did the injury was a doctor,
yes.
Does the harmed one have the option to say, I don't want you to cure me, or can the doctor say, you know, I'll cure you? In other words, you have to take me.
Right. The doctor, the one who injured him has to pay. Yeah. Now, if a doctor I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but very close to it. If the one who causes the damages, I have a doctor who's willing to cure you for nothing, I can save money, can say no. A doctor who cures without payment is worth nothing. That's the halachic response.
עשייה במגן, מגן שוויה.
No, betiyu.
What did you say?
עשייה במגן, מגן שוויה.
One who cures for nothing
Cure
is
for
wrong.
nothing is worth nothing.
Yeah, one is for nothing. I have a question. If somebody is getting old, let's say,
Yes.
and he doesn't work, he figured, I lived enough, I don't want to make suicide, but I'm not going to have the doctor cure me. I accept that I'm going to die soon. Is he allowed according to Jewish law? If he has an opportunity to be cured or to be an operation or whatever it is, and he refuses, he doesn't want to.
That depends. If it's a usual treatment, a standard treatment, that is part of like eating and drinking, standard treatment has to be administered.
What do you call it? What do you mean?
Extraordinary
Medicine.
That not. Now exactly how these categories are established, there are differences of opinion. If the question comes up, you'll have to ask a doctor. But routine treatments such as, let's say, insulin for diabetic and so on, these are considered like food, and that you're not allowed to refuse. But anything extraordinary...
Like an operation. You said you need an operation. If not an operation, you're going to die in a short time. Is he? And he said, "Forget it. I want to rather die." Is he allowed to do it? To say, "I don't want to die."
That depends. Again, it's the same question that we had before. It's a very standard operation. It has to be done. If it's not a standard operation, you don't. Now, what is standard and not standard, that you have to leave to the judgment of the rabbi and the circumstances. Yes.
You said that it's the doctor's duty to heal. You said that it's, if a doctor's driving along on a highway, sees an accident, lately they don't stop because there's going to be malpractice suits. Is that
It's a good Samaritan rule.
not fair?
That's a very serious question, but I have no answer. The only answer I have for it is that it's very, very wrong to bring a malpractice suit when it's not really justified. That's what causes these problems. In the end, sometimes the person who causes it in the end suffers from it. Not always the same person.